So what you got here is it's like an average positions map, but it's also an influence map. So this comes from StatZone. It's an iOS app. And what you can see in the top left of your screen is you can see that I've set it to particular minutes. So from minute 0 to 29, when Ødegaard came off, this was how Arsenal looked. Now you can see Rice central but drifting right into Ødegaard's space a little bit. But you can see Eze, his name is really small because he's barely had an influence on the game. So the bigger the name, the bigger the bold of the name, tells you how involved they were. Eze, barely. Trossard, barely. Like, it's really Calafiori's having an impact on that side of the pitch. Gyökeres wasn't getting involved. Rice is trying to make things work down the other side with Ødegaard and Saka, but that's not a dynamic and end of the pitch he's used to being a part of for Arsenal. So it didn't really work. Excuse me, everyone. I've got a slight cough. Maybe I should have brought water with me. So let's take that off your screen for a sec. So there's a slight imbalance. Now, Ødegaard, to be fair, for the time he was on the pitch, I'll give him a 7. Like, there's not really, or a 6, 6 or a 7. He was doing okay, maybe even a 6, to be fair. I don't think he was really having a great game, but he got the injury, 10, 15 minutes in. He tried to play on. I think he came off twice, yeah. And we really feel for him. So I thought Ødegaard was sensational against Olympiacos the other night. And you think, we just need to keep him fit and on the pitch. Because this dynamic with Eze will work. Maybe not as dual 10s, but both on the same pitch at the same time, I've no doubt can work. So really sad to see Ødegaard go off. I hope he doesn't go on international duty, and it's a real shame for him. But Zubimendi comes on. And I think at this point, Zubimendi completely changes the game because he tweaks the dynamic for this Arsenal team. So Zubimendi naturally comes into this area of the pitch, and you got something that looks a little bit more like this from Arsenal. But it meant that Eze could float into the right half space. And we saw that with the first goal. He makes a really good underlapping run here from a Zubimendi pass. And you know what? The underlaps were killing West Ham time and time and time and time again. What that allowed Arsenal to do was naturally then unclog the left side of the pitch, and Calafiori could invert higher up, or Rice could go higher up, which he did for the goal, and Calafiori could tuck in. Or, as we've seen a lot of this season, Trossard could tuck in, Rice could sit deeper, and Calafiori could go on the overlap. And he had a trio that could all work off each other rather than it being congested with Eze on that side too. But then sort of complications between the fact that, Rice is drifting over and we didn't have Eze dropping into build-up necessarily because Ødegaard was. And I just felt it gave Arsenal a much better balance. And we got a little bit of evidence with it on StatZone. This is then the next 30 minutes. So we've shown you basically the first 30 minutes when Ødegaard was on the pitch, the changes made. You can see the influence map after. Minutes 29, call it 30, through to minute 60/61. And you can see Zubimendi heavily involved in the game. Eze drifting right a little bit more. And Rice, who, let's just show you the first image, was deep, heavily involved to the right, is now higher, a little bit less involved, but to the left with Zubimendi on the ball. And now you can see more touches for Trossard. Eze's name a little bit bigger. The left-hand side was unlocked because they got more touches. Influence is measured by things like passes, touches, general involvement in the game. Their influence grew through the next half hour. We have compared a 30-minute period to another 30-minute period. So we could see the direct comparison between Zubimendi on the pitch and Ødegaard on the pitch. That's not to say they can't play together. They played brilliantly together against Olympiacos. But what it does tell you is that you really need, if we just remove this from the screen, you can actually see me. What you really need is that balance of a 6, a marauding 8, and then a 10. You can play the dual 10s, but then you need the dynamics on the left to be smarter. So, for example, if we had Eze and Ødegaard with Rice as the 6, then I think you need Martinelli on the left wing and you need Lewis Skelly, because Lewis Skelly can tuck in next to Rice. That forces Ødegaard and Eze to vacate build-up duties, not completely. We know we alternate. We know that we rotate midfield, but they can go high up the pitch. And Martinelli can play as a touchline winger because he's got the pace to do it. And there's plenty of passing creativity, central midfield guile to support him in a Lewis Skelly, in a Gabriel and his passes from deep, in an Eze, in an Ødegaard higher up the pitch. And then you unlock someone like Martinelli a little bit more. That's when I think you use the dual 10s, not when you've got a player like Trossard on the left who wants to tuck in. I think what I think what Arteta was going for was basically passes. I think he thought Nuno Espirito Santo, they could be very, very organised, West Ham. I need players who in tight spaces, Trossard, Gyökeres with his pace and power, Eze, Erdegaard. He wants them all there playing next to each other, and Rice just sweeping in behind to act as the shield. But we didn't really get that because, like I said, the imbalance was there throughout and players were going to each other's spaces. Zubimendi had a massive impact with the passing beyond. And he had with the passing beyond to Eze, who gets a shot away. It's saved. Rice puts in the back of the net. And the ball over the top to Timber, where he wins the penalty. Now, we don't just see this change from Arsenal in that first 30 minutes to the next 30 minutes. We don't just see that in, shape and influence map. We see that in the pure numbers and stats as well. Here we can see from the first 30 minutes, Arsenal has 7 shots on goal. That is 148 completed passes, 29 in the attacking third, only 3 take-ons. Remember those numbers. 148 completed passes, 29 in the attacking third, and 3 take-ons. In the same amount of time, in the following 30 minutes, Zubimendi comes on the pitch. Arsenal's numbers go up to 10 shots with 227 completed passes, 78 in the attacking third, and 10 take-ons. Arsenal's numbers jumped in all areas, from shots to completed passes to attacking third passes to take-ons. They all went up in that next 30-minute period because the balance was so much better from Arsenal. And I think that's what we need to take from this. Yeah, we all got excited when the lineup came out, the dual 10s, but I think the dynamics around those dual 10s and how you platform them is really, really important. When Pep Guardiola did it with De Bruyne and David Silva, he had behind Kyle Walker and Fabian Delph, and he had Sane and Sterling on the wing. Now, sometimes he'd do it with Bernardo Silva on the right or Foden on the left or whatever, but generally they thrived when they had lots of pace there as well, and at least that the touchline was being hugged. And I think Trossard didn't quite know what to do in that role. As you can see in the next 30 minutes, he really, really came to life. Zubimendi's numbers are highlighted here. As you can see, he stands out for attacking third passes, completing 20 out of 21 of them. Passes in total, what is that exact number? 69 out of 73. Sorry, it's a bit small on my screen, but you can all see it there. Feel free to hit the pause button if you want to look at some of this key data in particular. As you can see, this is looking at the whole match, not just the 60-minute period that Zubimendi was on the pitch. This is for the whole match, and Zubimendi comes just shy of Saliba for total passes and comes top for passes in the attacking third. Really, really good numbers from Martin Zubimendi, who's getting better and better in Arsenal shirt. And this was his pass map. And look at the range. I mean, the blue, I think, symbolizes an assist or a chance created, something like that. I'm not quite sure, but obviously we saw those passes into the underlappers, Timber, Saka, Rice, Marino, constantly underlapping through the game, Eze as well. And we can also see the different areas that he picked up the ball, Martin Zubimendi, how often he was just roaming in so many different areas to try and run the game for Arsenal. It was really, really, really good to watch. I just felt when he came on, he gave us balance in profiles, which I think helped massively, but there was immense quality from him on the ball. And that's what I wanted to try and highlight in these kind of last 2 graphics I've shown you here. He was just... I like Rice at the 6. I think Rice can play as a 6. But I think Arteta's system is built towards a Zubimendi style 6. But what you can do, if we just take it back to this, what we have noticed is Zubimendi will sometimes allow Timber to get forward and drop in here. We've seen this, the lines of 6. So we have seen Timber get forward when we're chasing a goal. So he'll drop into this area. Sometimes he advances up here and Rice can sit. Sometimes he will go in between the centre backs like this to receive the ball. And then Rice is joined by someone else dropping deep to get it. And Saka tucks in. The rotations from Arsenal are phenomenal. But Zubimendi is a huge, huge, huge part of this Arsenal team when they're in their most fluid rotational best.